All right, thank you for that. So back to, we've got about 20 minutes left, 25 minutes left. I believe that Elisa has been curating the hundreds of questions that have been coming in on the chat and is going to send a few to me. Is that correct? Elisa, you want to unmic and tell us what's going on?
I have sent a few to you personally in this chat box, and I would suggest that you start with what I think was the first one that I sent, which has to do with institutional endowments.
Okay, this is in the, because there's hundreds of messages in the chat. Where am I finding these?
Yeah, this should be to you privately, and hang on a second, I'll go in and send them to you in the Q&A box also.
Yeah, if you can just cut and paste them in the Q&A box, that'd be great. I'll look for them here. A lot of the chat that I've seen on the sidebar here is about reframing the narrative. A lot of what we've been saying is about the university as a public good. And someone just noted that the people who have been very good and effective at framing the narrative are the ones that want to cut everything. All right? So how do we effectively get people to buy into the idea of the university as a public good, even if they're not directly associated with it? What is it that we need to tell people? Anybody on the panel want to tackle that? Come on. Yeah, go for it. You'll have to unmute yourself, Steph.
I was volunteering Jamie because I thought he essentially answered the question. Well, I thought he dealt with that pretty beautifully. Yeah, this idea that, why should the public sector be devoting resources to educating individuals to go through college when college is a private good, right? You walk away with the benefits of the education. I think Jamie reminded us in a variety of different ways what universities bring to their surrounding communities. And that is a public good, as is, I would argue, we'll call it intellectual capital, the training, the education that one receives when they go out. You also become a contributor in many varied ways to the economy, to your local community, to society writ large. So the spillover benefits, whatever economic jargon you want to incorporate into this in terms of the positive externalities associated with public higher education. And Jamie talked about everything from the arts to the sciences. I mean, you want to say more, Jamie? You said it so beautifully the first time.
Well, I went out this morning. I live very close to campus here in Austin, and I went out and walked around a little bit on some of the commercial strips. And we've only been closed for 10 weeks, if that. And there's so many places which are boarded up and which are not coming back. So you already see the damage, and it's not just as though some places are open and that eventually they may still be here, but in just case after case, no, they're boarded up, they're painted over, they're gone, and that's, I'm sure, a scene that we're seeing everywhere around the country. Universities are just one anchor for economic activity of a lot of people, but they're an important one. And they're distributed across the country in an important way that was deliberate, that was national policy, and that was state policy as well, by the way. State governments have take their campuses and locate them around in order to serve communities. And recently they've been opening up new ones to make up for the fact that many communities traditionally underserved. So the Rio Grande Valley, for example, in Texas, is major. And these things are, we're been doing this for a reason. It's not just because you're giving people a leg up by giving them a degree. You're creating an institution which anchors the entire communities. We stop doing that, it's going to be slums from coast to coast, and we don't want to do that. We just do not want to do that. People need to be aware. And in the 1930s, by the way, I've just been reading a great book called Unprecedented Power on the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, which is headed by a Texas businessman named Jesse Jones. They understood you have to lend to the community as a going proposition, which means you have to keep these institutions in being. And then eventually they will work out everybody will work out together how to get through this. Collapse the infrastructure, it's basically Mad Max.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to just to add something very important, especially now that there is a pandemic. Research. I mean, we are using Johns Hopkins University research to guide us through this pandemic, to guide us through this unprecedented, issue. And without the teachers, the faculty of Johns Hopkins, sorry, my accent. We would not be able to have the data, the information that we need to guide ourselves in our daily lives. I mean, we need research. We need to keep developing, the information that we have about the world that surrounds us. And that's what faculty does, and that's what our students do. And so without this information, I mean, we would have this president who he thinks he's a doctor, but, he doesn't know anything, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. So he needs the guidance of the universities. He needs the guidance of students who are currently doing that. So it's a clear example that we need universities. And the reason why they don't want to invest in education is because they need a base of voters. Republicans and all these people need a base of voters. And so they don't want people to be educated. They don't want people to talk about the economics, philosophy, or history. And it's a shame, because when people don't learn their history, they're doomed to repeat it. And that's what we're seeing right now.
Mark, I'd like to make a comment as well, if I could.
Okay, but go ahead, Jeff. Try and keep it short, because I don't have much time, and I want to get some of these questions.
Yeah, sure. Just referencing what Jamie said as well. I mean, if you take a look at the state of Wisconsin, we have 72 counties. And there are essentially two metro areas, the Milwaukee metro area and the Madison metro area, that contain our state's two public higher education tier 1 or R1 universities. These are the only two places in the state that are actually drawing national and international capital and people. And so they are coming to these kind of creative environments. And as a consequence, these two areas are generating the tax revenues that the rest of the state is essentially living off of. So these are really, really big economic engines. I'm just going to make one quick final point, and that is that our state legislatures, again, that have been captured by Charles Koch and these other external influences, they run extractive industries, coal, oil, gas, paper, etc. And they have no interest in innovation or creative industries. They just want to extract wealth. So their only interest is in cutting taxes, not making any investments. You take a look again at the areas of our state, and like so many other states in the country that are bereft of these research universities, they're dying. And they are not the places that are drawing people, culture, talent, wealth, and as a consequence, producing wealth.
Yeah, thanks. So three themes that have been coming up in the Q&A, and I just want to run around the panel on this and see if you have any comments on them. Number one, endowments. If you're in a university that has one, is this the time to spend it down? Number two, libraries. Not everything is online, and not everyone has the possible connectivity to run everything online. Librarians are being asked to go back to work. They are the university's frontline workers. How should we think about their position in all of this and the role of the university library going forward? And then thirdly, the senior administration. Everybody knows that the growth in expenditures within universities has not been on faculty salaries. It's been on the residualization of faculty and pay at the very top. What should be done about each of those things? Start with endowments.
Yes, and somebody's mentioning actually that on the chat, there was an article about Johns Hopkins endowment. They have a $6 billion endowment that they're saying, we're not going to touch it, but we are in this financial crisis. And the article actually mentions, how can this university that has been around for so many years not be prepared for a financial crisis? And it is, again, because of the reason that these, universities are being run like corporations. But these endowments, we should be able to use the endowments for this crisis if they want to preserve the university. And that is one of the things, in our plan, we talk about a Marshall Plan for investment for higher education. And we did mention that we want this massive investment in education. But what I'm afraid of is that money will just go again to administrators, athletics, deans and presidents, and that money will not go to the frontline workers like the librarians, like the counseling and ESL. These are things that we need, or contingent professors that are, that have been devastated by this new restructuring of education where you rely on contingent faculty and they are living food stamps. I mean, it's unbelievable the way that we're not using the money where it needs to be used. So these endowments, I do believe, and this is the thing what I was talking about, forming a union or creating a union. It doesn't have to be a formal union. It just means that you talk to other faculty members and you work together, you talk to each other, and collectively you fight for these resources for your universities, for your colleges. Because nobody can stop you on that. They can say, oh, you're not a formal union or whatever, but they can't stop your power when all of the faculty members are talking to each other and are fighting together for the same goal. So I do believe that if we want those resources, you gotta form a union, you gotta talk to each other.
Anyone else? Jamie, do you want to comment on this, on any aspect of this, endowment or libraries or top salaries for non-faculty administrators?
Well, certainly if I were a federal official administering a reconstruction finance type fund, I would want to know, in dealing with any university that was wealthy, what it was doing, what contribution it was making, and how it was using its resources. I think that would be, obviously a very important thing to know and to deal with. But most of the institutions that we're talking about don't have those kinds of resources. Most of the institutions that need to be preserved are they're newer, they're poorer, they're less well endowed, they operate on their fees and their tuition and some support from the public sector, and that's where we need to be really focusing. Question about facilities and libraries and other facilities as well. It's a very important one, and I do think you can intelligently organize yourself so that those facilities are available in a way which makes it safe enough to work there, but that people are not constantly, since we know more about how this thing is transmitted, are not constantly coming into contact. Librarians should not be, exposed in the ordinary way to a stream of people who might potentially be contagious. I think clearly you can work this out. But the libraries obviously should be preserved and they need to be maintained. And for that, you need to have people working there, and you need to do that in a safe way. We can't shut down everything. We're not shutting down hospitals. We're not shutting down the food supply. And we shouldn't be shutting down core facilities. Do we need to have, as I say, undergraduates stacked on top of each other in dormitories? Do we need to have them packed into classrooms? Those are the kinds of things we should be thinking about. And every university has to do this in a way that makes it work. And as I said before, use the technology in an intelligent way. You can probably get a long way there. But you have to get over the idea that we're going to return to normal next semester or the semester after that. Because if you think that, you're going to end up in September and not prepared and not reacting to events in a way which will be unpleasant and make it even harder to get through in the long run. So, this is a long-term problem. It's a problem with an element of crisis that deals with the pandemic, and then a big element of how to reorganize things so that within the resources we can manage, we can preserve these institutions and build on them. And by the way, just add one other thing, because they're about funding mechanisms. Obviously, Stephanie said if you could get the Congress to do this, that would be great. If you can't get the Congress to do it, there are proposals. Economists talk about human capital all the time. So that's an investment. You can put that in the capital budget and issue a bond and let the Fed buy that at essentially very low interest rate. All right, that would be a way of getting around the balanced budget requirements. It's possible. It can be done. If you can't do that, by the way, states have some powers here. they could simply issue an IOU and make it acceptable as taxes. And that would make it possible to pay people. Now, obviously, there'd be a discount on that. It's not the ideal thing to do, but it has been done. It's been done. It was proposed in California in 2008. So it's not exactly a novel idea. It's workable. And when it was more than proposed, it was planned for. It was basically headed off at the last minute. And if enough states got together and said, this is what we want to do, well, then the people in Washington say, well, maybe we don't want you to do that. Maybe we'll come up with some money. So we have to think about how to bargain this so that we preserve these institutions and kick some political leaders into action that they might not otherwise want to do. Mm-hmm. I used to work for a congressman from Milwaukee, so a great man by the name of Henry Royce, and his whole career was about getting people to do things that they didn't want to do, and I learned a lot from that example.
Stephanie, do you want to come back on this, or Jeffrey?
Stephanie, please first.
I mean, I think, Jamie and I agree that there is an ideal and straightforward way to do this. The shortest distance between 2 points, as long as we're on a plane, is just fine. It's just to write a check. But if you have, an intransigent Congress that's not going to do that, and governors want to preserve their higher ed systems, then there are creative things they can do. There are also ways to do this through the Fed, as Jamie mentioned. I mean, you could do open-ended, unlimited lending out of the Federal Reserve to state governments. I mean, we could get creative. We can create the kinds of institutional, effectively bank lending frameworks, right, that would allow us to get money to states. States could do what Jamie said. I mean, there are all kinds of things, right?
The RFC did, and the RFC operated out of the Fed's offices.
Right.
Jeffrey.
Yeah, I just want to say that our group has been working on a policy brief in which we're addressing just these kinds of problems and trying to put forth solutions to them. But we may even need to think about one further level of difficulty, and that is situations where, not only do you have a Congress that is unwilling to spend, but state legislatures that are blocking initiatives by Democratic governors to fund these institutions as well. And I'm wondering if we might even envision a possibility for some public universities to, issue debt without the approval of their state legislatures. I mean, so, I think I guess we're going to have some lawyers look at this as well to see if these institutions can do end runs around their own state legislators.
One question that came in, and this is probably going to be our last one, unfortunately, because we do have a hard stop at 13:15. Is the concept of public service essential to making the case for educating individuals regarding the utility of the university? So let's put this in context. We were talking about the university as a public good, and that cuts against the sort of individualist, or if you will, neoliberal emphasis on the individual and the skills that they take on and the relationship as a market transaction. There was another way of thinking about this, which was land-grant colleges, bootstrapping communities, the notion of wealth existing at a community level. And also that went with a set of responsibilities, that there is such a thing as a public good, but there's also public service. And that's been largely abandoned by the voices that we hear in Congress. It's hyper-individualism. Is there a way in which we could use this moment, not just to talk about the university as public goods, but in a sense as public service, that the public service component built into this is what needs to be reinvigorated? Is that something that we can work with? I'll just throw that open to whoever wants to take it.
Well, I think definitely we need a sense of, and then I'll defer to Jamie here very quickly. We've become this hyper individualized society, right? I mean, even in our use of social media, we're all in these individual silos. There's very little in the way of shared experiences, shared public institutions, and so I think we do need to, in fact, as I was saying earlier in one of my remarks, rebuild the very idea of society itself.
I would just say that this is one of the oldest and most settled principles of American academic life, which is that the people who teach are, in fact, public servants. We don't work for the deans. We don't work for the presidents. We work for the public. That's what we do. This goes back to John Dewey. This goes back to the most fundamental principles of the American university. It is a core principle of our society that we are public servants. And that's how we, I think, and we present ourselves. Of course, the dialogue has been highly distorted in this recent era. It's being sort of, everybody talks about it as though this is some kind of private good, but it's not. I never thought of myself that way.
I'm sorry, but but when tuition is at least $10,000 a year, I cannot see my professor as a public servant or see myself as a public servant when my students cannot afford to go to college. So I think when we say public servant and this is why we need to aim, higher public education into being completely free, because then people are saying, oh, I'm paying with my taxes. Like I'm actually making a difference and I don't have to pay this extra amount. Like right now we're seen as private goods because they are paying out of pocket and they're not paying, like I said, tuition, maybe in my country it's like $10 a year. They're not paying $10. They're paying thousands of dollars. I mean, the University of Wisconsin is at least $10,000 a year. Who can afford that? So they're not going to see us as public servants when we are charging them huge amounts of money. And so that is why, and part of our proposal is to, first eliminate student loan debts and have an aim into public universities being completely free. Then we can change the vision of teachers and professors as actual public servants. Right now, we are not public servants. I'm sorry. They're not going to see us like that when they're coming to class and they're paying thousands of dollars.
Many of our colleagues are not receiving a very large share of that money, and they are in fact working in a public capacity. Now, obviously, the university as a whole is not behaving that way. I totally agree with that. But I would just say for the vast majority of our faculty colleagues, they're performing the public service and they're performing it in a public spirited way. And I think the students who they are paying, but they do see that. Now, obviously, what they're paying for administrative overload and too much maintenance and so forth, and whatever the expenses of the university are, but it isn't going to the people who are on the front lines. It's not going to the graduate instructors. It's not going to the lecturers. So that's where I want the solidarity to be. That's my view. So
it's 13:15. I'm going to have to unfortunately bring this to a close at this point in time. Stephanie in particular has a hard deadline that she has to meet. I hope that this has been useful to everyone who's been on the call. Wonderful comments that we've all been reading in the side panel as it's been going along. We kind of know better now, I think I do at least, where not just where the problems are, but where we need to press, where we need to organize, and where we need to push. And our job now is to take from this and basically go ahead and do that. Let's not drop it. Let's not leave it to experience. Let's get out there and fight for this. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks everybody for joining. Thank you so much to our panel, and thank you so much to Leo.
Thank you.
And Randy, we will just send out over chat a brief that is in the final stages that the panel is prepared, which people will find very helpful in their work in terms of advocating for higher ed funding. Thanks,
Great.
everyone.
You're going to put it in the chat,
Yep.
Leo, or so before
now.
people leave, you'll do it right now. Thanks.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Okay. Bye-bye to all.
Bye, everybody. Have a
Take
good
care.
weekend.